a warm welcome from my side. It was very touching to watch it without understanding anything, but it was very nice to see the pleasure, so that was a great spectacle for me to in the middle of my day. First of all, I would like to thank very much. It's an honor and pleasure for me to be here today and to share this special moment for you, the start of the academic year 2019-2020. As the title of my talk indicates, I will try to share some ideas with you about the relation of universities and their role in fostering what I call in my work responsibility, the capacity to respond to the complexities of the worlds we live in as scientists, and to turn this very abstract notion of responsibility into something that is an ability, so something that we can do and we can think about. That's where I would like to take you to in the next 20 minutes. Actually, when we look at science and technology, we very strongly argue today that it is a motor of societal development. Our expectations are very high, actually. We would like that science and technology contribute to finding solutions to a broad range of global and local challenges contemporary societies are facing. I think the region here is not very different to many other European regions. We struggle with environmental issues, with energy, with computing, with digitality, and many other issues across Europe. But it also brings that innovations bring into being a future that we want to share and we want to live in, while at the same time there's always the idea that we need to be economically competitive. And very often, unfortunately, we simply tend to assume that scientific knowledge and technological innovations will always benefit societies at large. And in turn, societies are expected to support and embrace scientific and technological innovations. In order to start thinking about these things, I would like to share with you and invite you to think with me about a quote which I took from the British sociologist Barbara Adam from her book, Future Matters, Actions, Knowledge and Ethics. And here she says, industrial capitalist societies are inescapably wedded to innovation and progress. Change rather than stability is the order of the day. In this dynamic world of universal mobility, standing still means falling behind. This committed pursuit of novelty distinguishes this contemporary mode of being, so aspired across the world, from other socioeconomic systems. So from socioeconomic systems in which the creation of permanence and stability was and is a desired goal, where products were and are crafted to last, where political structures are designed to endure and people conduct their social relations with a fair measure of predictability. Now, this very short sequence already shows you the kind of challenges we are confronted with. It's not only about creating innovation, we have to create them quickly. We have very short timelines in which we have to turn our knowledge into something that is economically viable or that can change the world. And this is a challenge for a university. And that's where I would like to take you and think with me. So where in all these developments is then the question of responsibility? If change driven by scientific and technological innovations is so important to us, we have to ask, how good is actually our responsibility? So our ability to respond to, our capacity to anticipate and reflect on ever new challenges in a fast evolving socio-technical world. And paradoxically, these challenges are often both created by scientific and technological developments. I just remind you of the debates we have across Europe on plastics in our environment. This is the success story of the 20th century, which now turns against us in a way where we need to find solutions how to deal with these questions. And at the same time, we call again for science and technology to help us solve some of these problems through innovations. So we are in this kind of ambivalent paradox situation that science and technology do both. They create some of the problems because they were turned into societal goods that were not necessarily always thought through before they went there, and at the same time we call for it to find the solutions. Thomas Hughes, the historian of technology, has in one of his books pointed very nicely to the fact, how can we understand technology? And he says, technology is actually messy and complex. It is a variety. It is full of contradictions. It is laden with human folly, saved by occasional benign deeds, and rich of unintended consequences. And I think this captures very nicely. So we long for technological innovations in many ways because they make our world different, they allow us things to do, and at the same time, sometimes they go into directions which are more closer to folly and to unintended consequences than we might want to have them. Let me take you to a mundane example. Very often in today's discussions we discuss about digitization and Industry 4.0 and whatever, but sometimes it's good to go back in history and to learn from what we have done before, and not just look at ourselves now, but think what has happened. Langdon Winner has, in one of his quite famous articles in 1980, posed the question which I think we should pose every day. Do artifacts have politics? What does he mean by that? Very often we say the artifact is the artifact. It doesn't have any, it's just humans who employ it in a not good or in good way. But he very nicely points to the fact that technologies always have already society in them. They have our ideas and wishes in them. So he points to this tomato harvesting machine, and he shows how an American university develops this tomato harvesting machine, and the university offers that to the peasants that live around the university free of anything. So it's not about money making, it's not about patenting, it's about giving something back to society. This wonderful gesture is meant to simply support those who have to do the hard manual harvesting work. So what it did, however, this harvesting machine was, it requested a restructuring of land and ownership, because you cannot run a machine on a small piece of land. It needed collectivizing the growing of tomatoes and standardizing what you want to grow, because you could not have one field like that, the other field like that. So there was very little to no place to smaller owners anymore. It changed the work culture and killed a segment of the labor market, namely cheap labor in that sense of people who lived on that, who had no other possibilities to work. And it leads to the creation of a different tomato, because the initial tomato was not ready to be ripe by this machine. It was squashed. And so you needed a tomato that was a bit harder, had a skin that was a bit more robust, and the tomato had also to adapt to the machine. Now, this is a very good example, I think, because it seems so easy. It's just a tomato harvesting machine. What can this machine do harm? Now, it did actually restructure the way we consume, the way we produce, the livelihoods, etc., of a lot of people in the region. And in that sense, we don't need to go into digitization or in any other fancy technological domains. We just have to think about the mundane, about the easy things which we think are straightforward and innocent. And Madeleine Akridge has, in her work, developed this very nice notion where she says every technology has a script built into it. And this script, like a theater script, tells how we deal with this technology, what the technology allows us to do and what not, and many more. And scripts, in that sense, reorder the world. They define the ways of acting in this world. And they create, I quote, new geographies of responsibility. So it distributes responsibility in new ways. And so thinking about technology always means to think about many of these kind of unintended things that might happen with it. So then we can say technological innovations change and shape what citizens and researchers are, but they also change how the world around us looks like. We live in a world that is highly hybridized. A lot of nature culture objects exist, and we work daily on it. I mean, even if you look probably at our bodies, we can see how much technology is already in it. And I have all kinds of glasses and things that help me move through this world. And in that sense, technology shapes our practices and actions. But on the other hand, it allows us perception and experience of the world in new ways. And in that sense, technological innovations and those who produce and imagine technological innovations are very more important actors than we often we want to think, because we love the work we do. We don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time thinking about all that is in and outside of this piece. So in that sense, we have to think of the complex networks of entanglement of human and non-human elements. This redefines what responsibility means and how it comes to matter. So how to deal with our complex relations then with scientific and technological innovations? The American scholar Sheila Jasanoff has developed this very nice idea of technologies of humility, actually, she calls them. And she says there's a difference. Modern societies have developed what she calls a technologies of hubris. So generally, we tend to reassure, I quote, to reassure the public, to keep the wheels of science and industry turning. Governments have developed a series of predictive models. We do risk assessment, we do cost-benefit analysis, we do climate modeling, that are designed all on the whole to facilitate management and control, even in areas of high uncertainty. And what she points to here is that these tools are important, but they limit our view to the world because they only allow us to ask certain kinds of questions, and they kind of leave out other kinds of questions we would have to ask. And that's why she says we need much more to develop something that she calls technologies of humility. And this means methods, or better yet, institutionalized habits of thought, so ways of thinking that try to come to grip with the unknown, the uncertain, the ambiguous, the uncontrollable. Because that's what technology in society is about. Acknowledging the limits of prediction and control. In that sense, they call for different expert capabilities. And I think that's the key point and one of the key messages which I would like to give away. It exactly ties into my idea that we have to move away from thinking in terms of accountability. So we've done everything, we've gone through an ethics committee, we have spoken to 3 people and asked them if they're happy with what I'm doing, etc., etc. We have to move away from just account giving, so having done correctly things, to responsibility, so having thought about what these things mean in the real world. And because technologies already have society in them, we need to do that even more often and earlier to explicitly acknowledge what do we think the world is like, where this technology fits into. And any person that develops new knowledge, new technology, has some idea, implicit very often, about where he or she wants to bring this development to. In the European area, we have in the recent years spoken a lot about the framework of responsible research and innovation. And I think this grid offers us one way to think about it. And it identifies 4, if you want so, practices that would help us to get closer to this ideal of becoming responsible. The first is anticipation. We need more systematic thinking. How will innovations impact the ways in which we live? And this means going well beyond, does it harm anybody directly? Most of technologies don't do. The harvesting machine did not harm directly the farmers, but it harmed them in many indirect ways, and we have to think more systemically and networked. It's about inclusiveness. So actually, who is given voice? So to whom do we listen? Is it a very small group of stakeholders that say this is industrially viable, so go for that direction? Or do we go beyond that? And this means design, use, maintenance of innovations. Who benefits from them? That's an important question. For whose benefit is an innovation there? Reflexivity, it questions our activities, our commitments, our assumptions. We very often speak of values. And finally, responsiveness. How should innovations be designed and maintained so as to allow for adaptation to future societal needs and experiences? And in my work, which I'm very often involved with designers or with technology engineers or physicists or whatever, it's very often that we go for a solution and then we say, now we have gone so far, we cannot change that anymore. We realize that this is problematic, but this is not possible anymore. So think about design that can respond to change, that is flexible enough. This is one of the problems we have when we transfer our knowledge to other cultural regions, that we have built too much of our society into them, and they do not easily find a response in other cultural contexts. So in that sense, I think very often we have to think about value of innovation and values in innovation and make that difference. The value of innovation is very much tied to the idea, is it economically viable? And do I have somebody who wants that product or that idea or that thought or that whatever? To values in innovation. So to think about what values did go into the development of whatever it is, a piece of software, a product, a cycle, a process, whatever. So think of the very meaning of the notion of the public good that is to be achieved through innovation processes. Who is the public being imagined of profiting from that innovation? Who speaks in the name of that public? And in that sense, I join René von Schomburg when he says not solely market mechanisms should be the leading force in deciding the normative dimensions or the value dimensions of what counts as an improvement. But we have to have more inclusive models of doing so. What does that mean for universities? Universities are key institutions in contemporary innovation society. They train and form the next generation of knowledge workers for research and beyond. If you look across society, many key figures, or most key figures, I take no risk of saying that, come out of universities. Sometimes I ask myself, how did that happen? That they went through the university and do certain things. They create important parts of the knowledge base of contemporary societies. They are generally a multidisciplinary space. They develop a long-term, or should develop a long-term vision through an engagement in research in a rather broader manner, so thinking with, and sometimes also when needed against, contemporary developments. And it's about curating and caring for the knowledge and the know-how across time. In that sense, the university is the key institution here. So while many other kind of companies, be they small or big, play an important role in making innovations, they cannot make them without the university playing that role in educating and bringing up the next generation. But universities are in a constant balancing act. And I hope you don't fall down at one point in time, because that's high up. They should be engines of economic growth while championing for the importance of academic values and a certain degree of freedom in doing so. And current debates on the problem of, be it transgressing the boundaries of good practice or the kind of reproducibility debate we have, we see how this tension plays out. It's a balancing act between training a highly specialized, skilled labor force while educating the next generation of response-able academic citizens, which we trust in reimagining our societies. And it should be highly competitive and efficient while being open and explorative and cooperative on many different levels. So these are sometimes quite contradictory demands that we put on this institution, and we all feel them from time to time more or less severely. So in this picture I snatched from your webpage because I liked it very much. It says inspiring innovation, empowering talent. And I thought maybe I would like to go there and insert a word, and I would like to say inspiring response-able innovators and empowering talent. Because the task of the university will be to develop, train, and cherish, and that I underline, the capacity of scientific and technological innovators to be response-able, to see the complexity of the things they do, not only within the technical, but within the socio-technical. So to bring the social into the technology, and to understand that this skill is key for entrusting them to assure a societal future we all find worth living. Thank you for your attention, and my best wishes for the academic year 2019-2020.